Everybody, and welcome to Saturday's lesson concentrating on the Cambridge B2 First Certificate exam. This exam is very important for a lot of people and it's a very interesting exam. In my previous lessons, I have explained in detail the different parts of the exam, but today we continue with the next exercise, and the next exercise is the reading part 5 multiple choice questions. It's very difficult because the text is very detailed and it's very tricky text and very specific, and also the questions are complicated because you have 4 multiple choice questions and they are very similar. So my intention today is to try to teach you a lot of the vocabulary from the text and at the same time keep in mind the questions in multiple choice, and we can try to do and find the answer, because ultimately your job in the exam is to find the answer, and today we will try to help and to try and practice doing that. Some people are probably preparing for the exam and that's fantastic, but this also is a very good way for anybody to learn English during this lesson in particular. So I hope that you will enjoy the lesson. I hope that you will learn some things, and remember, comments, feedback, please put your comment and your feedback in the Facebook comment section. Please like the video, and you can share the video with anybody preparing for this exam as well, or anybody interested. Social media, if you want to contact me and follow me on social media, my Instagram address is @admilioringles. My TikTok account is @admilioringles, and the YouTube channel is @admilioringles, and also Pinterest is @admiliora1. You have the Facebook already, and WhatsApp is the contact details here for WhatsApp. You're welcome to contact me if you have any questions about the course or about learning English as well. My schedule next week is very different. So this is my schedule for this week, and today we are finishing the end of the week. We are almost finished, but next week I plan to have a different timetable and a different plan and a different schedule, maybe less content, maybe different ideas, and tomorrow I will try to inform you about those changes. So next week I expect to have a little different schedule. This is my project, teaching for free online on Facebook Live to the public, and I started this project during the pandemic, and I think it's a very good idea and very helpful as well, hopefully for lots of people. If you want to support me, you can make the subscription or make a donation or make a tip through the bank details, or also via PayPal as well. If you want to help and support me, that's possible if you can. So tomorrow I will try to update the schedule for next week and try to give you some information in relation to that. Also, for a company or a business, if you have an interest in supporting my project or sponsoring my lesson or my project, you can contact me and I can advertise your company and promote your business during this lesson as well. So that's a possibility if you have an interest and you are a business or a company or an English school, for example. Okay, let's begin. So this is the exam, and you remember last week we did part 4. Part 4 was very interesting because we needed to change the sentence. If you remember, the first sentence was necessary to have the same or similar significance as the second sentence, including the word they give you, and that was the instructions for last week, and that was part 4. Part 4 is difficult, and today we move to part 5. So now we have completed all the use of English, part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, and as a result we have the opportunity now to move to part 5. Part 5 is the reading exercise. Here is part 5, and I hope you can see it very clearly. Obviously the text is very small, but don't worry for the moment. So on the left is the text. This is a typical article from a newspaper, a magazine, a book, a journal. It's a typical English passage, an English text, And on the right, we have the options 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. You can see the questions. We have multiple choice, so there's 4 options. And really, the options are so similar. Option A is very similar to B, very similar to C, and very similar to D. So this is difficult. Probably in the advanced exam, it's more difficult. And the proficiency exam, the options are more similar. But still, today, at the first certificate level, the options are still very, very similar. And that is our job, to identify the correct answer. So that's it. That's the structure. It's very easy to understand. Most people probably have experience doing this type of exercise in school, and it's very basic structure, but it's tricky. Okay, so I recommend first to read the questions. I recommend to read the questions first and to try to understand exactly what we are looking for. So let's read the questions, but before we read, let's look at the introduction here. And in this text, you are going to read an extract from a novel. So specifically, it's from a novel. So it could be a magazine, a newspaper, a book, a journal, and this book is a novel. It could be fiction, it could be real. So this is the context. It's an extract from a novel in which, so in the novel, a young woman called Kathleen talks about her life on an island. So this lady is speaking about her life. She's describing her life living on an island. So that is the context, very specific and very, very interesting, maybe, or maybe boring, depending on your preference. For questions 31 to 36, choose the answers A, B, C, and D, which you think fits best, which you think is most appropriate according to the text. Okay, so that's the basic introduction. Here is the first question, because I think it's necessary to read the question first. If you have difficulty to understand me, select the option for subtitles, and on Facebook Live you can listen to me and watch the subtitles at the same time, and maybe this is a good assistance and a good support for you as well if you need. Okay, in the first paragraph, what is Kathleen's main point, principal point about the island? So what is her principal point about the island? Probably she makes different points, but we are looking specifically for the main principal, dominant argument, dominant point she makes about the island. Okay, pronunciation is a silent S, island, so that's important as well for pronunciation. That word is very classic in English. So is it A, B, C, or D? It, the island, can be dangerous to try to cross from the mainland. So the key vocabulary here is the mainland. This is the principal country, it's the principal part of the land, and the island is very small in comparison. So the mainland is very good vocabulary. And another example could be Italy and maybe Sardinia. So in Sardinia is an island, but the mainland is all of Italy. So that's just a little example. Another example, I don't know, maybe, I don't know, Greece obviously has a lot of islands, so there's plenty of islands, but the mainland is, I think, maybe where Athens is, if I'm not wrong. So that's good vocabulary. The mainland is the principal body of the country. Or B, the main point is the island is much smaller than it looks from the mainland. So the perception of the island when you stand on the mainland, it looks big, but in reality it's much smaller. Or C, the main point about the island is only completely cut off at certain times. So this is a phrasal verb, cut off, and it means blocked. If you're cut off from the internet, you are blocked from the internet. If you're cut off using this road, you are blocked from using this road. So that's the significance of cut off, restricted or blocked. Or option D, the island can be a difficult place for people to live in. Is this the main point that she is making, that the island has the possibility to be a difficult place for people to live? Okay, So that's the first question. Now I have two options. My option is to read the first paragraph to try to find the answer, or to continue to the next question. I think I will look for the first paragraph. So now we must analyze the first paragraph and try to find the answer at the same time. Okay, so here is the principal question, and I will put the question here at the bottom so you can see at the same time what is the answer. Okay. Remember, if you have a comment, please put your comment in Facebook. Please leave your answer in Facebook if you want to try to find the answer. So let's look at the vocabulary. And I tried to make this a bit more organized. Perfect. Okay. We live on the island of Hale. So preposition on is typically used for an island. In is for a country or a city. You live in the country, you live in this city, but on specifically for an island because it's a surface. And that's very, very important. Pronunciation again, island, the S is silent. So we live on the island of Hale. It is about 4 kilometers long and 2 kilometers wide. So it's 4 kilometers long and 2 kilometers wide. Wide is very important adjective at its broadest point. So the word broad is an adjective. Broad is a synonym for wide. So broad, think of the United States, think of New York. You have Broadway. Broadway is the avenue, the street that's very wide with all the theaters, the performances, the musicals, and that is broad. It's possible to have broad shoulders, and this means very wide shoulders. The street maybe is very wide or very broad. It's possible the verb to broaden your mind, and to broaden your mind means to open your mind as well. So that is very, very important vocabulary. So it's 2 kilometers wide at the most, at the widest, the broadest point. And it's connected, it's joined to the mainland by a causeway called the stand. So a causeway is very difficult vocabulary. It must be a type of connection between the island and the land with stones. In Ireland, we have the Giant's Causeway, and I think it's made of stones. Okay, so it's connected to the principal land by a passage of stone. A narrow road, so narrow is the opposite for wide, narrow, built across the mouth of the river, which separates us from the rest of the country. Most of the time, you wouldn't know we are on an island because the river mouth between us and the mainland is just a vast stretch of tall grasses and brown mud. So, a bit difficult. Let's repeat that sentence. Most of the time, you wouldn't know, you wouldn't realize that we are on an island. Why? Because the river mouth between us and the mainland, so basically the port or the river, the opening of the river, is just a vast stretch of tall grasses and brown mud. Difficult because stretch is an extension, a stretch of road, a stretch of land. It's an extension, a quantity of road, and vast means very, very big. So it's just a very big quantity of grass and mud. So grass is obviously the type of material we have in the park, and mud is the earth that's typically wet. So for that reason, you don't know you're on the island because of the connection. The river looks like land. I think that's the point. The river looks like the ground. Okay, is that the principal point? Is that the main point? Maybe. But when there is a high tide, this is very difficult vocabulary, but very important. A high tide, the tide is the flow of the river. It's connected to the moon, I think. So when the tide is in, the water is at the beach, I think, and when the tide is out, the water is away from the land. So it's typical at the beach, at the ocean, the tide is in and the tide is out. So it's very specific to the water, and high tide and low tide are very important as well. So it's very specific vocabulary. But when there's a high tide and the water rises, half a meter, so when the water comes in and the high tide, a meter or so, that means a meter or more, above the road, and nothing can pass. So the road to cross is blocked until the tide goes out again a few hours later. Then you know it's an island. So the main point, I think, is the last sentence, and she is describing when the water blocks the road that connects the island to the mainland. It's frustrating and you feel isolated because the road is blocked. That's my interpretation. So some very important vocabulary: tide, or so, a meter or so or more. Nothing can pass until the tide goes out. Okay, so interesting, and I think you understand the paragraph more or less. So the main point: it can be dangerous, maybe. 2, option B, no. Option C, yes. Option D, maybe, because it's difficult to live when you're blocked, but I think specifically, probably, it's option C. The other options, for example, A and D, are possibly connected, but I think the most specific, the most precise answer might be C. So let's suggest 31 is C. And I said the difficult vocabulary was a tide, a meter or so, and that was the most important vocabulary, I think, from the text. The other possibility was a vast stretch of land, or of road as well. So they were the key expressions in relation to the vocabulary. So let's continue to the next paragraph, and specifically the next question. So the next question is here. No, that's 33, sorry. The next question is here, 32. Next. So, well, actually, I'll go to the text here to show you properly on the real exam. So, question 32. What does Kathleen suggest about her father? So this is very specific, and hopefully this is very easy, because we are looking for the suggestion that Kathleen makes about her father, the recommendation or the suggestion. She suggests his writing prevents him from doing things he wants to do with his family. So this structure, prevent, is like to stop or to impede. And the structure is typically prevent you, prevent me, prevent him from, plus the gerund, the ing. That is the typical structure. So we say prevent somebody from ing. Okay, very, very important structure. Prevent me from having, prevent you from going, etc., etc., etc. And that is key. Okay, so his writing prevents him from doing things he wants to with his family. Is that her suggestion? Does she suggest his initial reaction to his son's request is different from usual? So what is his son's request? We don't know. But his first reaction to the request from the son is his different reaction than he normally has? Or is she suggesting that her father's true feelings are easily hidden from his daughter? So the verb to hide, for example, I hide, and then I appear. So the participle is hidden. The verb is to hide, the past is hid, and the participle is hidden. And is she suggesting that his real, authentic feeling is hidden easily from the daughter? So he's not very honest or very open or very easy to communicate with because of his emotions are hidden. Or is she suggesting his son's arrival, the father's son's arrival, is one event, one action, one time? He will take time off. So this is a phrasal verb, and we say to take time off, and this means to have a holiday, to have no work, and that's the structure, to take off time. So is she suggesting that when the son arrives, this is the only time he will take a holiday because of this? Okay, so very interesting and very different situations. I think A, B, C, and D are very, very different. Let's look at the paragraph and let's read the question as well. Okay, so here is the question. I'll put the question here. Okay, we were on, we were on our way back from the mainland. My older, I think that's the second one. Yes. My older brother Dominic had just finished his first year at university in a town 150 kilometers away. Okay, so they're returning from the mainland to the island. Dominic's train was due. This is very important vocabulary. It means expected. If something is due, the significance is it was expected. I think I lost my note. Sorry, I need to put it at the corner. So the key vocabulary here is due, and his train was expected, it was due in to the station at 5, and he had asked, past perfect, he had asked, this is the period of time before another action in the past, he had asked for a lift back. So we have very important vocabulary here. We say due, the train is due, and a lift is related to transport. When a person takes you in the car, transports you in the car as a gesture, as a favor, this is a lift. Very important. So he asked for a lift back. He asked for transport from the station. He asked to be collected. Now, Dad normally hates being disturbed when he's writing. Normally, Dad, this is the question, father, normally dislikes, hates being disturbed, molested, annoyed, bothered, because in Espanol it's molestar, but in English it's a little bit, it's not so common. Molest is a little bit more sinister and a little bit more nasty. But annoyed, bothered, disturbed when he's writing normally, which is just about all the time. So normally he's writing, and normally he does not like to be disturbed. And he also hates having to go anywhere. So he does not like traveling. He does not like being disturbed. But despite the typical sighs and moans, so very important vocabulary, a sigh is when and then to moan is to complain. So he's typically unhappy to be disturbed, and he makes a gesture with his respiration. That's to sigh. And we have lots of different situations. We can say a sigh of relief, and this means you are happy because you have been alleviated. So that is the first significance. And the verb is to moan, and this means to complain. Okay, so let's check again the text. And despite the typical complaints, the typical unhappiness for being disturbed, why can't he get a taxi? So he's suggesting the son gets a taxi. This will allow him to be calm and to continue his work. What's wrong with the bus? Can he not take the bus because this will allow him to continue working as well, to continue writing? I could tell by the sparkle in his eye that he was really looking forward to seeing Dominic. So he was complaining, but she is suggesting that he was really, really excited, and that's the key part here. A sparkle in your eye is fantastic vocabulary. So let me put this here. And this means you're really excited, because a sparkle is like when the light is shining on the jewelry, it sparkles, like to shine. So there's a shine in his eyes, and this means he was very excited. And then looking forward to is when he is excited. So you're looking forward to something, you're very excited and you're very motivated and you're very, very happy. Okay, so what is the answer? What does Kathleen suggest about her father? His writing prevents things he wants to do with his family. Maybe because he is always writing, possibly, but I don't think exactly. His initial reaction to his son's request was different from usual. No, because his reaction was sighs and moans, and it was typical. This is his typical reaction, so his reaction was normal, not different. So I don't think A, I don't think B. C, his true feelings are easily hidden from his daughter. No, I don't see any connection to this. Option D, the son's arrival is one event he will take time off for. So yes, I think It's not fact, it's only a suggestion. So she is suggesting that this event of the sun arriving, he is very excited, and she is suggesting he will take time off to do this. You must interpret that answer. It's a bit difficult because it's not so clear, but I think the correct answer is D, and that's my final answer. So that's 32D. Okay, 33. Let's look at the next question. And here is the next question. Kathleen emphasizes, identifies her feelings of discomfort because she is embarrassed that she doesn't understand what her brother is talking about. So Kathleen mentions her feelings, her uncomfortable feelings. Specifically, she mentions and she emphasizes and she highlights. So we have different vocabulary. We can say to mention, to highlight, to stress, to identify, and to emphasize. So we have different, very good vocabulary here to say the same thing. And here she is speaking specifically about her uncomfortable feelings because she is embarrassed that she doesn't understand what her brother is talking about. So her brother maybe is speaking about something specific and she does not know. So she explains that she's uncomfortable. Or she explains she's uncomfortable because she feels confused why she can't relate to her brother anymore. So very similar. The first option is she doesn't know what he's talking about, or the second one, she's confused because she doesn't recognize him. Or C, she's upset, she is sad by the unexpected change in her brother's behavior. So is she sad? Is she depressed? Is she feeling bad? Is she feeling confused, or is she feeling embarrassed? So we have a lot of adjectives here that we have to pay attention and try to recognize. Embarrassed, confused, upset, or foolish. She's feeling silly, she's feeling stupid, she's feeling foolish. That her brother's attention is so important to her. Very interesting question and difficult. I think this question is difficult. So let's check the question here. We put the question on the screen and we try to do the question together. So let me move to the next paragraph. And here is the next paragraph. And I try to make it smaller so we can see everything. Yes, perfect. Okay. So anyway, Dad and I had driven to the mainland and picked up Dominic from the station. Question, why is it I and not me? Do you know the reason why it's I and not me? So basically we say Dad and I went, or Dad and me went. What is correct? What do you think is the correct structure? Is it I or me? Well, the correct answer is I, because we have the verb. And when you have the verb, you need the subject pronoun. The subject pronoun is I, you, he, she. So Dad and I are subjects, pronouns, and that's perfect before the verb. This word is the object pronoun. It's typically after the verb in the object position, but really we're in the subject position here. So that's the reason it's I. Okay. Dad and I, sorry. Yeah, okay. And then nearly there. Whoa, sorry, there we go. Okay. Dad and I had driven, it's the past perfect again, had driven, drive, drove, had driven to the mainland and picked up. To pick up is a phrasal verb to collect from the station. He had been talking non-stop from the moment he'd slung his rucksack into the boot of the car and gone. So very, very important vocabulary. Okay, so the first one is picked up. Is like to collect. In a car, you remember a lift. We say to give a lift, and this means to pick a person up. It's a phrasal verb. And the next word here is very, very difficult. Well, very important. We say talking non-stop, and basically This means continuing to speak rapidly, like a rabbit. Sometimes in English we say he's speaking like a rabbit because he's talking a lot. And then here we have a very difficult structure. From the moment he had slung his rucksack into the boot of the car. So the verb is to sling, and it's very similar to throw. It's more advanced than to throw. And think of a slingshot. When you think of The Simpsons, the cartoon The Simpsons, and Bart Simpson, Bart Simpson has the object, and this is a slingshot because you bring back and throw. That's a slingshot. So the verb to sling is to throw. In the past, it's irregular and slung, and the participle also is slung, and this is the past perfect. He had slung, and a rucksack is like a bag when you travel. When you go camping, when you travel, you have a rucksack, and that is a bag that you wear to carry a lot of things. That is your rucksack. It's very similar to a backpack, but a backpack is more for school, maybe. School bag. Backpack is more for school, but a rucksack is more for traveling. The big bag on your back is a rucksack. So very, very specific vocabulary. So he started talking non-stop from the moment he threw his bag in the boot. And the final vocabulary is the boot of the car. This is typical in Ireland or the UK. And basically in the United States, they have a different word. They say the trunk of the car. So in the United States, it's the trunk, but in Ireland, it would be the boot of the car. So it's a very important sentence. So basically, let's look again. The boy, the son, had been talking. That's the past perfect continuous, very difficult verbal tense, but you recognize talking, non-stop, continuation, speak. From the moment, from or since, the moment he had slung his rucksack into the boot and got into the car. The verb to get is like to enter. So it's a very difficult sentence. This is a very difficult sentence. So basically he started talking from the moment they met. University this, university that, so blah, 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 blah. University this, university that. Writers, books, parties, people, money, gigs. What is a gig? A gig is a concert. Okay, a gig is a concert. And we say a music gig. Also, we say a gig economy. So a gig is like a little job as well. And that's very famous. A gig is a little job. So a gig economy is the economy of business. For example, the small jobs like delivering food, delivering packages, that's known as the gig economy, and it's possible you have a job today and you have no job tomorrow. So that's a very famous expression today, the gig economy. So a gig is a music concert. So in university, he is speaking about the concerts and the music. And when I say talking, I don't mean talking as in having a conversation. I mean talking as in jabbering like a mad thing. Impossible vocabulary to understand. The verb is to jabber. We say jibber jabber. And this is very colloquial and very slang. And it means to, when you speak, like extremely fast. Extremely fast. Blah, 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 blah. That's to jabber. It's not very typical. It's very old, but we must understand what it is. And a mad thing is like a crazy person. Okay, so he was crazy. He was speaking so fast. He was very excited. Blah, 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 blah. He was crazy. A mad thing is a crazy person. And in conversation in Ireland and in Dublin, it's very typical to say you are a mad thing because you did something crazy, you did something exciting, you're a mad thing. So that's typical in Dublin and in Ireland as well. So in this situation, he was talking incredibly fast, like unbelievable. I didn't like it. So she didn't like it. Is she confused? Is she sad? Is she foolish? Is she embarrassed? The way he spoke and waved his hands around, so he was very different, gesturing. The brother was very different. She recognized him as a different person. as if. That means like. He was some kind of intellectual or something, so he was behaving like very different, and he was behaving like he was a professor or an intellectual. An intellectual is like a professor. It was embarrassing. So here's the key word, embarrassing. The situation was embarrassing. Was she embarrassed? Maybe. It made me feel uncomfortable, discomfort. I think it's related to embarrassed. Okay, so that kind of discomfort you feel, the type, the sort of discomfort you feel when someone you like, someone close to you, suddenly, immediately, very quickly starts acting, behaving like a complete idiot. So she was upset. Yeah, I think she was upset. She was embarrassed. She was sad. And I didn't like the way he was ignoring me either. So she didn't like that he was ignoring the sister. For all the attention I was getting, I might as well not have been there. So this is very difficult because it's very fluent. I might as well not have been there. So this structure, you might as well. This really means probably a recommendation. You should. Okay. So basically, you might as well, the chocolate biscuit, you might as well take the biscuit. You should take the biscuit because a different person will take the biscuit if you don't take the chocolate. So you might as well, you should. I recommend that you should take the biscuit. So the structure, you might as well, means recommendation. So it's very, very fluent and very important. And she is recommending, she is suggesting that she should not be there. I felt like a stranger in my own car, so she felt strange. So is she embarrassed? She doesn't understand what her brother is talking about. No, because she understands university, writers, books, parties. She understands what he's talking about. She feels confused about why she can't relate to her brother anymore. No, nothing about relating to him. She can relate to him. For example, all the attention I was getting, but he was ignoring me as well. So I don't think it's B. C is upset. I think C. She's sad. She didn't like it. She's embarrassed. Sorry, the situation is embarrassing. It's very uncomfortable. So she's not good. And upset has the significance not good. And the change is unexpected. So the behavior of the brother acting is unexpected and it's different. Or F, she feels foolish she feels foolish that her brother's attention is so important. The answer seems to be very clearly, I suggest 33C. I don't know what you think. This is my opinion. And always, it's a good idea for you to practice this exercise first. I recommend you try to do this exercise first before my video, and then I can help you with this video a little. Okay, next, 34. And remember, if you have a comment, if you have a question, if you have a doubt, if you have feedback, please put your feedback in the Facebook chat and put your comment in the Facebook comments, and I can answer your question at the end of the lesson. Okay, question 34. In the fourth paragraph, what is Kathleen's purpose in describing the island? So what is her purpose? Why is she describing the island? She wants to express, she wants to communicate her positive feelings about the island. This is why she's describing the island, because she wants to say she's happy about it. She's describing the island to explain how the road was built, how the road was constructed. She was describing the island to illustrate what kind of weather was usual. So is she focusing on the weather? That's her intention. Or to describe her journey home. So this is question 34. And I put this here beside us again to have a good idea of the question. And I put it here, and we continue to the paragraph. Okay, so this is the fourth paragraph, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's important. And let's check the question. Okay, as we approached the island. The verb to approach is very important. To approach means to come to. Approach for example, the aeroplane approaches the airport, comes to the airport. Approach traffic, approach the traffic lights. It's possible to approach a person. How do you come to the person? What is your attitude with the person? How do you approach the problem? What is your mentality? What is your attitude to the problem? So as we approached the island, as we moved to the island on Friday afternoon, the tide in the ocean, the tide was low. So the water was very low. Remember, it's very easy to pass the road because the tide is low. And the stand is the road. Welcomed us home, stretched out before us. So you can see the stretch, you can see the distance. That's the significance of stretch. Stretched out. The road is very easy to see all the road. Clear and dry. So the passage is very easy. Beautiful, hazy in the heat. So hazy is difficult vocabulary. Hazy is unclear because of the sunshine. So for example, today is a nice day, and when the heat is very high, the temperature is very high, sometimes it's difficult to see, and that's the adjective hazy. For example, my memory is a little hazy. This is similar to blurry. You cannot see, you cannot remember very clearly because it's a little hazy. So fantastic vocabulary. And the vocabulary in this text is difficult. Very difficult. For a first certificate B2 level, I think the vocabulary is difficult, but it's not necessary to understand all the vocabulary. That is not your job. Your job is to find the answer. Specifically, your only responsibility is to find the answer. In this lesson, yes, I am explaining the vocabulary, but in the exam, you only need to select the correct answer. Simple. Okay. So the road was beautiful in the heat. A raised strip of grey concrete. So again, difficult vocabulary. Raised is elevated. Strip is a piece. Strip of paper. A strip. So it's a piece of paper. So elevated strip of grey concrete. Bound by white railings. Very, very difficult because here is boundary. It's related to boundary. So the road at the outside, the perimeter of the road, the boundary of the road had the white railings, and the railings is the fence. So incredibly difficult vocabulary, very colourful vocabulary, and a low footpath on either side. So she is describing the island. She specifically is describing the road. So not really the island, she's describing the road with rough, oh my God, so very, very difficult vocabulary. Rough is very opposite to smooth. So if the water is rough, it's very chaotic. It's the opposite to smooth. It's the opposite to calm. It's crazy. If something is rough, it's very uncomfortable, very crazy, very wild, very difficult. For example, a rough day, a difficult day, a rough week, a difficult week. So in this situation, the so the bank of the road is the side of the road. The bank of the river is the side of the river. So the bank of the road is on the side. Cobbled is related to stones. In Dublin, in Temple Bar, we have cobbled stones. It's the type of stones we have on the floor. They are the cobble stones. So the verb to cobble together means basically to put together, like the stones, you assemble. And that's the significance of the cobble together. So here the adjective is cobbled. Banks, so the side of the road have the stones leading down to the water. Beyond the railings of the road, you have the railings, the fence, and beyond the railings, after the railings, the water, my goodness, difficult vocabulary. The water was glinting, and glinting means shining as well. So normally we say a glint in your eye, which is like a sparkle in your eye, and this means shining. Really important vocabulary. A glint in your eye, a sparkle in your eye, something is shining. Okay, so in this case, the water was shining. with a silver light that you get here in the late afternoon, which lazes through. So the light lazes, very difficult again, because the adjective is lazy and the verb is to laze around or to laze about. And this means to relax and do nothing. If you're lazing around, you have no activity, no plan, you are doing nothing. So it's very, very important vocabulary and very difficult. So in this situation, she is describing the light, the silver light, which is not moving. It's very lazy. It's very strange vocabulary. It's very difficult because she's describing the light being lazy. So that paragraph is very descriptive. Very, very descriptive, full of great quality vocabulary. Very difficult to understand, almost impossible to understand at B2 level. But what is her purpose? Why is she describing this island? To express her positive feelings? No. To explain how the road was built? No. To illustrate what kind of weather? No. I think she's describing her journey. She's just basically describing the journey, the travel home. Because if you look, as we approached the island, so as has the significance while at the same time as, for example, as you go to the shop, I go to the supermarket. So while, that's the key word here. I don't know if you understand this word as and while. So I think as here has the significance while, as we approach the island. So at this time, the tide was low, and she's describing this scene as they're traveling. So for me, it's just basically describing the travel. This is difficult. It's very difficult. I remember my first time to do this exercise. I was totally lost, totally confused. But today, in fact, now is the first time I'm very clear with the answer. But previously, I was very, very confused with this answer 34. And I think 34 is D, in my opinion. Okay, let's continue to number 35. And question 35 is very clear. In because of that, in line 31, that refers to, speaks about, is regarding the fact that locals think it is odd to walk anywhere. Odd means peculiar, strange. Odd, peculiar, strange. Okay, odd is the same as peculiar, strange, bizarre. Okay, and that's the significance of odd. So, because of that, locals thinking that it's strange to walk anywhere, or because of that, because of it being easier for people to take the bus than to walk, or because of people have everything they need on the island, or because there is nowhere in particular to walk from to and from the island. Okay, this is question 35, and here I put the option on the screen to have beside us during the explanation. And now we search for line 31. Where is line 31? Here. Okay, so let's try to identify the answer. Okay, sorry. We were about halfway across, so they're still on the road and they are halfway across the road when I saw the boy. My first instinct, my first thought, my first idea was how odd it was to see someone walking on the stand. So she was shocked, she was surprised, because it's very strange to see a person on this road walking. You don't often see people walking around here. It's very unusual to see people walking on the stand. Remember, the stand is the road that connects the island to the mainland, so it's very unusual to see people walking on that road. Between Hale and Moulton, Moulton is the town, 30 kilometers away. There's nothing but small cottages, farmland, heathland, and a couple of hills. A cottage is a small house. Farmland is obviously a place to grow agriculture. Heathland is like similar to farmland. It's full of grass. and a couple of hills. So islanders don't walk because of that. Okay, so therefore, the people on the island, the inhabitants, are known as the islander. If you are an islander, you are a person who lives on the island, and generally, people don't walk because of that, because there is nothing on the land. There is nothing, only cottages, farm. So that's the answer. Because of that is because the land has nothing but the houses. So no, option A, no. Option B, no. Option C, no. Option D, I think D, because there's nowhere in particular to walk. There's nothing. There's nothing. There's only land and farm. So there's no particular avenue or walk. So again, I think the answer clearly is D. I hope you follow me. I hope you understand my explanation. But I think clearly the answer must be D. So let's select 35, D. And then finally 36, what is the question for 36? The question here for 36 is, what do we learn about Kathleen's reactions to the boy? So Kathleen, the writer, has a reaction specifically to the boy. And why is this significant? What do we learn with her reaction to the boy? Well, she felt his air of confidence. So the boy had an air of confidence, and she thinks this confidence contrasted with his physical appearance. Okay, so the boy was maybe very confident, but maybe his physical appearance was maybe weak. Or she was able to come up with, this means to create. If you come up with a plan, you create or make a plan. Come up with an idea, you create or make an idea. So she came up with a reason, she created or she made a reason for him being there. So she had the ability to invent, to make a reason why he was there. Or she realized, she discovered that her first impression of him was not correct. It was wrong, her first impression. Or she thought she had seen him somewhere before. Okay, so it's difficult. So specifically, we need to look for what we learn, what we discover about her reaction to the boy. That's question 36. And it's the same boy who was walking on the road. And we look for question 36, I think is here. And I make it bigger and put it on the screen like this. Okay. Very difficult vocabulary because we begin, the verb is to draw, and draw is typically with a picture. You draw a picture, but it's also to attract, to draw attention. So the expression is to draw closer, really is to come closer. Okay, so if you draw close, the significance is to come close. So as we drew closer, he was actually a young man rather than a boy. So her first impression was a boy, but that was incorrect because it was a young man, not a boy. Rather than is very important. The significance is instead of. Okay, so rather than has the significance instead of. Very, very important. So therefore, he was actually, in fact, a young man and not a boy. Although he was on the small side, so his appearance was very small, he wasn't as slight as I had first thought. And a slight man or a slight woman is like skinny, slim, thin, small, light. And that's the significance really of a slight man or a slight woman. So in this situation, he was on the small side. He wasn't as slight as I first thought. So in reality now he was bigger. So her first impression was incorrect 2 times. He wasn't exactly muscular. No, he wasn't physical, but he wasn't weedy looking. And this is very difficult as well, because a weed is like grass. On the concrete, you have weeds, and weeds are the grass that you don't like, that people don't typically like on the street. It's a weed, but a weed is a metaphor for a person who's a very weak person physically, and therefore weedy is saying he looks very weak. So he wasn't weedy looking. It's difficult to explain. So she is confused a little. There was a sense of strength about him, so she sensed that the boy is strong, because strength is the noun. The adjective is strong. Okay, so strong is the adjective and strength is the noun. Okay, it's very important because we say long and length. The difference between the adjective and the noun, we say wide and width. We say high and height. So you can see the connections here between the adjectives and the nouns. And in this case, strength is related to strong, a graceful strength that showed his balance, the way he held himself. And this is very important as well. To hold yourself is to behave. So if you hold yourself very well, this means the way you act, the way you behave. Very difficult, very fluent vocabulary. And to hold yourself is the way you behave, the way you act, your manner. The verb to hold is this, to hold a hand, and in the past it's irregular, held. Okay, so what do we learn about her reaction to the boy? She felt his air of contrast. No. She was able to come up with her. No. C. Yes, I think from a process of elimination, I think the best option seems to be C, because her first impression was incorrect. 2 or 3 times she thought originally she thought he was a boy, but no, he's a young man. She thought he was skinny, but no, he wasn't. So her first impression was incorrect. And I think that's 36C. Okay, so they are all the answers. And let's check the answers here now in the text for part 5. Here we go. And we can see 30C, D, C, yes. A, D, C. Okay, so the one answer we have wrong is A. And let's just check what the answer was for this one. And let me check the text again. So 34. Okay, so her purpose on describing the island was to express her positive feelings and not to describe the journey. So that was my mistake. So to express her positive feelings, why? I don't see anything about positive feelings here. Yeah, this was confusing before as well. So my mistake, I don't see my mistake, to be honest. I don't see why well, to be honest, she is using vocabulary that's very positive, that's very complimentary, beautifully, glinting, that's used, wonderful. So she's very positive, glinting, wonderful. So maybe that's the reason, because the adjectives she is using are very positive. So maybe that's why the answer might be that. Okay. Very good. So that's everything for today. That is part 5 of the reading. It's very similar to most English exams for reading, and it's multiple choice, and it's always difficult. And that is exactly the case here. But it's good practice, and it's very important to practice this type of exercise. Okay, so thank you so much for watching. Thank you for watching live. Thank you for watching recorded as well. You can like the video. You can share this video with anybody learning English or anybody preparing for the exam. You're very welcome to share the video. You can put a comment if you have a question, a comment or a doubt. Put your comment in the Facebook chat and I can answer your question at the end of the lesson. And thank you for watching. This is my schedule for this week. I think next week will be very different. We are almost finished this week, and I will inform you tomorrow with my plans for next week. This is my project. It's teaching English for free online on Facebook Live. I think it's a very good project to try and reach people online. And if you want to support me, you can make a donation or a tip via the bank details, or you can make a subscription on PayPal. You can cancel anytime as well if you wish. So thank you so much. I hope that you have a good day. And if you are a company and a business, you can support me and sponsor my project as well. I can advertise and promote your business as well. And finally, social media, you can contact me on and follow me on the social media channels as well. Great. Thank you so much. Have a good day and hopefully enjoy your weekend. And I think I've one more lesson today for vocabulary and then we're finished. But that's my plan. Have a very good Saturday and hopefully see you soon and take care. Bye bye.